Master your judgments. Control what is within your power. This is the first dominion, the private throne no invader can storm unless you open the gates. The modern man imagines control as conquest over circumstances, titles earned, wealth accumulated, influence extended across networks of strangers. Yet all of that remains atmospheric, shifting like weather across a restless horizon. The only empire that does not erode is interior. Your judgments are the architects of your experience. They sculpt reality more sharply than events themselves. An insult lands only when you translate sound into significance. A setback wounds only when you interpret it as verdict rather than lesson. Delay, rejection, failure. These are neutral occurrences until you baptize them with meaning. You decide whether they become humiliation or instruction, catastrophe or curriculum. Mastery begins at that invisible moment between stimulus and response, where judgment awakens. Most men surrender this instant unconsciously. They react reflexively, emotionally, theatrically. They blame traffic, markets, competitors, governments, childhood luck. Yet the disturbance is not in the traffic or the market. It is in the interpretation. The untrained mind is porous. Every opinion seeps in. Every headline agitates. Every comparison corrodes confidence. Judgment without discipline becomes a tyrant. It exaggerates inconvenience into injustice and inconvenience into oppression. It whispers that discomfort is danger and that desire is necessity. Soon the man no longer lives by reason but by reflex. He is dragged by impulses disguised as convictions. To master judgment is to interrogate it relentlessly. When anger flares, pause and question its authority. What belief ignited this heat? What expectation was violated? Who promised that the world would conform to your preferences? Beneath most frustration lies entitlement, the quiet assumption that outcomes must bend to personal desire. Remove the entitlement, and the frustration dissolves. Replace the assumption with acceptance, and irritation loses oxygen. Control what is within your power. This boundary is surgical in its precision. Your effort is yours. Your character is yours. Your preparation is yours. Your response is yours. Outcomes are not. Reputation is not. The timing of success is not. The behavior of others is not. Clarity emerges when you separate effort from result. Pour yourself into the former and release your grip on the latter. Anxiety thrives where you attempt to supervise what never belonged to you. Modern culture amplifies illusion. Metrics pulse on screens. Validation arrives in numbers. Comparison is constant, curated, relentless. Judgment becomes distorted by spectacle. You measure worth against filtered images and selective narratives. Mastery requires withdrawing belief from these illusions. The applause of strangers cannot fortify your character, and their criticism cannot dismantle it unless you consent. Let your standard be internal, calibrated by principle rather than popularity. Consider how swiftly mood shifts when expectations shift. If you expect comfort, inconvenience feels cruel. If you expect challenge, inconvenience feels normal. Expectation is the hidden lever. Train it carefully. Expect difficulty. Expect imperfection. Expect resistance. Then, when obstacles arise, they confirm your understanding rather than contradict it. The mind remains composed because reality aligns with preparation. Judgment also governs fear. Fear is rarely born from the present moment. It is constructed from imagined futures. The mind rehearses catastrophe with vivid detail, mistaking possibility for inevitability. Yet the future is a territory you cannot patrol. What you can command is present conduct. Prepare diligently. Act decisively. Let tomorrow unfold without your supervision. Fear shrinks when confronted with disciplined action. Resentment reveals another misused judgment. You replay offenses, polishing them with memory, enlarging them with narrative. The offender occupies your mind rent-free while you believe you are punishing him. In truth, you are punishing yourself with repetition. Reclaim that space. Decide that the event is concluded. Your peace does not require their apology. It requires your decision to cease interpreting the past as a present threat. Even praise must be examined. Flattery can intoxicate as surely as insult can provoke. If your judgment equates praise with identity, you become dependent on its supply. The absence of applause will feel like deprivation. Anchor identity in chosen virtues, integrity, courage, discipline. Let compliments pass through without attachment. Accept them without absorption. To master judgment is to cultivate deliberate perception. View setbacks as data. View criticism as information. View hardship as conditioning. View success as temporary. Stewardship. This reframing is not denial. It is strategic interpretation. You are not ignoring reality. You are selecting the perspective that strengthens rather than weakens. Your mind is a workshop of narratives. Each event enters raw and unshaped. You craft the story that surrounds it. Craft wisely. Stories of victimhood sap vitality. Stories of responsibility generate agency. Agency fuels action. Action breeds progress. Progress reinforces confidence grounded in effort rather than illusion. Discipline in judgment requires daily rehearsal. Before reacting, insert inquiry. Before speaking, examine assumption. Before concluding, verify evidence. Precision in thought produces stability in emotion. Stability in emotion produces excellence in action. Excellence in action compounds into character. The world will remain unpredictable. People will disappoint. Plans will fracture. None of this diminishes your sovereignty unless your judgments. Concede defeat. Guard that sovereignty fiercely. Audit your thoughts as you would finances. Identify distortions. Correct exaggerations. Replace dramatization with proportion. When you encounter adversity, say, "This is an event, not a verdict." When you encounter success, say, "This is an opportunity, not a crown." When you encounter uncertainty, say, "This is a space for preparation, not panic." Discipline desire and detach from external validation. Desire, when ungoverned, becomes a glittering leash. It promises elevation, yet quietly engineers dependence. The modern man is surrounded by invitations to crave status, admiration, luxury, recognition, perpetual stimulation. Every platform whispers that fulfillment lies one acquisition away, one promotion away, one applause-filled moment away. Yet desire without discipline is a well without a bottom. The more you pour into it, the louder it echoes. Desire itself is not the enemy. It is energy. It is propulsion. It is the spark that animates ambition and fuels creation. But undirected energy becomes wildfire. The question is not whether you will desire, but what you will permit yourself to desire and how tightly you will bind your peace to its fulfillment. When your contentment depends on possession, you become fragile. When your confidence depends on applause, you become performative. When your identity depends on comparison, you become restless. External validation is intoxicating because it is immediate and visible. A compliment lands like a medal. A surge of approval feels like coronation. Yet the same source that crowns you can dethrone you with equal speed. If strangers manufacture your worth, strangers can revoke it. Discipline begins with scrutiny. Interrogate every craving. Ask what lies beneath it. Do you want wealth for security or for superiority? Do you seek recognition for impact or for ego? Do you pursue influence for contribution or for control? Many desires disguise insecurity. They appear noble on the surface, but are rooted in hunger for affirmation. The disciplined man distinguishes between aspiration and attachment. He may strive for excellence, yet he does not tether his identity to outcome. He may welcome appreciation, yet he does not rely on it for self-respect. He understands that applause is whether pleasant but unpredictable. Character is architecture stable, deliberate, enduring. External validation is a marketplace where value fluctuates by trend. Today's hero becomes tomorrow's irrelevance. The crowd is impulsive, emotional, and inconsistent. To anchor your self-worth in its verdict is to build on sand. True steadiness arises when approval becomes optional rather than essential. Consider how much anxiety originates from anticipation of judgment. You rehearse conversations, refine appearances, edit opinions, all to manage perception. You shape-shift to fit rooms. You dilute conviction to avoid disapproval. Slowly, authenticity erodes. You become curator rather than creator, performer rather than principled man. The discipline of desire requires courage, the courage to prefer integrity over inclusion. Desire for validation often manifests subtly. It appears in the urge to announce achievements prematurely. It appears in the reflex to check reactions after speaking. It appears in the discomfort of being unseen. Silence becomes threatening because it offers no confirmation. Yet growth often matures in obscurity. Roots deepen in darkness. Skill sharpens in solitude. Detach not by rejecting appreciation, but by recalibrating its significance. Let praise inform, but not define. Let criticism instruct, but not diminish. When feedback arrives, evaluate it through reason rather than ego. Accept what refines you. Discard what distorts you. Your worth remains constant regardless of reception. The discipline of desire also extends to material craving. Luxury seduces with promise of permanence, yet novelty fades quickly. What once thrilled becomes ordinary. The appetite recalibrates upward, demanding more elaborate stimulation. Without discipline, lifestyle expands faster than gratitude. Simplicity becomes foreign. Contentment becomes elusive. Practice voluntary restraint. Choose moderation when excess is available. Choose silence when recognition is possible. Choose substance over spectacle. This is not deprivation. It is strategic liberation. When you prove to yourself that you can thrive without constant affirmation, you reclaim autonomy. Comparison is the silent architect of discontent. You measure your progress against curated highlights of others. You assume their victories are effortless and their lives are uninterrupted triumph. Desire inflames as you chase illusions. Yet comparison ignores context, sacrifice, struggle. It narrows focus to surface outcomes. Discipline redirects attention inward. Compete with yesterday's version of yourself. Measure growth by alignment with principle, not proximity to another's status. Detach from the hunger to be liked by all. Universal approval is mathematically impossible and philosophically undesirable. Conviction naturally divides opinion. If no one resists you, you likely stand for nothing distinct. Let respect replace popularity as your aim. Respect arises from consistency, reliability, integrity. It matures slowly and endures quietly. Desire can also attach to narrative, the desire to be perceived as extraordinary, heroic, indispensable. This craving distorts decision-making. You may choose dramatic paths over disciplined ones simply because they promise visibility. Yet excellence rarely announces itself. It accumulates through repetition, patience, refinement. The disciplined man cultivates internal validation. He evaluates his conduct privately. At day's end, he asks whether he acted with courage, whether he spoke truthfully, whether he restrained impulse, whether he advanced his craft. His satisfaction arises from alignment, not applause. This self-assessment becomes his compass. Gratitude weakens compulsive desire. When you deliberately acknowledge sufficiency, craving loses urgency. Appreciation reframes abundance. Instead of scanning for deficiency, you recognize provision. This perspective does not extinguish ambition, it purifies it. You pursue improvement from inspiration rather than insecurity. Detach from external validation by diversifying identity. You are not solely your career, not solely your physique, not solely your reputation. Anchor identity in chosen virtues, discipline, honesty, resilience, generosity. These cannot be conferred or confiscated by public opinion. They are cultivated internally and expressed consistently. Digital culture amplifies validation loops. Metrics quantify attention. Algorithms reward provocation. The temptation to curate persona intensifies. Resist the urge to manufacture relevance. Create from authenticity rather than strategy for applause. Produce work that satisfies your standards. First, let audience be consequence, not objective. Silence your need for constant reassurance. Stand comfortably in rooms where your name carries no weight. Contribute without seeking spotlight. Accept seasons of invisibility as training grounds rather than threats. Discipline desire, and you refine ambition into purpose. Detach from external validation, and you insulate peace from volatility. The world may fluctuate in its opinions, but your equilibrium remains intact. Approval becomes pleasant, but unnecessary. Achievement becomes expression rather than proof. Confidence becomes rooted, quiet, and movable, nourished by internal conviction rather than external noise. Embrace hardship as training for character. Comfort is seductive, but it is a poor architect of strength. Ease dulls edges. Convenience softens resolve. When life flows without friction, the spirit rarely develops density. Hardship, by contrast, is abrasive. It grinds, presses, stretches, and exposes. Yet within that pressure lies refinement. Steel is not forged in velvet chambers. It is tempered in flame. Modern life conspires to minimize discomfort. Temperature is regulated. Food is immediate. Entertainment is infinite. Obstacles are bypassed with a swipe. This convenience, while impressive, quietly erodes endurance. The nervous system grows impatient. Attention fragments. Tolerance for frustration shrinks. A minor inconvenience feels catastrophic because resistance has become unfamiliar. Hardship reintroduces resistance. It interrupts entitlement. It confronts you with limits of patience, strength, skill, humility. In that confrontation, illusion dissolves. You see yourself without decoration. You discover whether your confidence is cosmetic or constructed. When adversity arrives, the instinct is complaint. Complaint feels relieving in the moment, yet weakens posture. It frames difficulty as injustice rather than instruction. The disciplined perspective asks a different question. What capacity is this discomfort demanding that I develop? Patience? Precision? Resilience? Courage? Every challenge carries a curriculum. Failure is among the most powerful instructors. It dismantles arrogance. It exposes blind spots. It clarifies preparation gaps. Success can seduce you into complacency. Failure forces recalibration. Instead of branding it humiliation, reinterpret it as revelation. You are not diminished by falling short. You are informed. Physical hardship sharpens mental endurance. When you voluntarily subject yourself to disciplined exertion early mornings, rigorous training, deliberate fasting from indulgence, you send a signal to your mind. I can withstand strain. That confidence migrates beyond the gym or the task. It infiltrates business, relationships, decision-making. The body becomes evidence that you can operate beyond comfort. Emotional hardship cultivates depth. Rejection stings, yet it clarifies. Alignment. Not every door should open. Not every partnership should persist. Loss fractures expectation, yet it expands empathy. Pain sensitizes perception. You become more attentive, more compassionate, more deliberate. Financial hardship humbles and instructs. It teaches resourcefulness, creativity, prioritization. It strips away excess and reveals essentials. Abundance without prior scarcity often breeds carelessness. Scarcity endured with composure breeds wisdom. Hardship also reveals allegiance. In moments of strain, your habits surface automatically. Do you default to blame or ownership? Do you retreat into avoidance or advance into problem solving? Character is not constructed in crisis, it is revealed. Yet, each crisis offers opportunity to reinforce stronger habits. The mind often exaggerates discomfort before it occurs. Anticipation inflates pain into impossibility. When you step into the challenge, you frequently discover that it is survivable. Each endured difficulty recalibrates your threshold. What once intimidated becomes manageable. What once exhausted becomes routine. There is a profound dignity in endurance. Not theatrical endurance that demands recognition, but quiet perseverance that continues without announcement. The man who keeps his word under strain, who maintains discipline when unobserved, who remains composed when provoked, he accumulates invisible capital. Hardship prunes ego. When you confront tasks beyond your competence, pride dissolves. You are compelled to learn, to seek guidance, to refine skill. This humility is not weakness. It is elasticity. The rigid branch snaps in storm. The flexible branch survives. Avoiding hardship breeds fragility. A fragile man requires constant accommodation. He structures life to eliminate inconvenience. He becomes dependent on ideal conditions. When reality disrupts those conditions, he collapses. Resilient men, by contrast, train in imperfect environments. They rehearse composure amid noise. They practice patience amid delay. They cultivate steadiness amid uncertainty. Suffering, however, must not be romanticized without discernment. Unnecessary pain pursued for spectacle is vanity. The hardship that strengthens is purposeful. It aligns with growth. It stretches capacity without destroying foundation. Wisdom distinguishes between destructive chaos and constructive challenge. Obstacles are sculptors. They carve discipline from impulse. They carve courage from fear. They carve clarity from confusion. Each confrontation chisels identity. You become defined not by the absence of difficulty, but by the quality of your response. When confronted with criticism, instead of defending reflexively, mine it for insight. When faced with delay, refine preparation. When plans collapse, innovate. Hardship is rarely polite. It interrupts schedules and shatters expectation. Yet within disruption lies adaptation. Consider the psychological alchemy that occurs when you voluntarily choose difficulty. Cold showers, demanding study, uncomfortable conversations, disciplined. Restraint. By electing discomfort, you invert the dynamic. Hardship becomes tool rather than threat. You are no longer hunted by adversity. You are training with it. Character thrives in repetition. One courageous act is admirable. Consistent courage under pressure is formidable. Hardship supplies repetition. Each challenge is rehearsal for the next. Gradually, resilience becomes instinctive. Gratitude can coexist with struggle. You can acknowledge pain without surrendering perspective. Hardship reminds you of capacity. It reveals that you are more durable than comfort suggested. Endurance becomes evidence of latent strength. In community, shared hardship bonds profoundly. Teams forged through difficulty possess cohesion that comfort cannot manufacture. Mutual struggle dissolves superficiality. Authentic respect emerges when effort is witnessed and reciprocated. Time reframes hardship. Experiences that once felt unbearable often become pivotal chapters of growth. The challenge that seemed cruel becomes catalyst. The setback that felt turmoil becomes turning point. Embrace hardship, not with bitterness, but with strategic acceptance. Let it polish discipline, intensify focus, fortify patience. Let it dismantle entitlement and construct gratitude. Let it expose weakness so that weakness can be strengthened. Let it confront you with your edges so you may extend them. Act with virtue regardless of circumstance. Virtue is not a decoration for favorable seasons. It is a discipline for hostile climates. Anyone can appear principled when conditions are convenient. Integrity seems effortless when applause follows. Honesty when generosity is reciprocated, when courage is rewarded. The real examination emerges when virtue costs you something: status, comfort, profit, approval. Circumstances fluctuate without consultation. Markets tremble. Alliances dissolve. Promises fracture. Injustice surfaces. Fatigue accumulates. Yet, amid this instability, one domain remains available for governance: conduct. You may not command events, but you command response. That response becomes signature. Over time, repeated responses crystallize into reputation. Deeper still, they crystallize into identity. Virtue is alignment between belief and behavior. It is coherence. When action contradicts conviction, internal friction develops. You may silence conscience temporarily, but dissonance lingers. The disciplined man values inner alignment more than external advantage. He would rather endure loss than fracture his own standard. Honesty is among the most demanding virtues. It requires precision in speech and restraint in exaggeration. In competitive environments, distortion often appears profitable. Embellishment can accelerate influence. Omission can protect image. Yet every compromise accumulates residue. Each small deviation normalizes the next. Eventually, the narrative you present diverges so far from truth that maintaining it requires continuous performance. Honesty simplifies existence. You speak plainly. You remember nothing fabricated. You stand without fear of exposure. Courage is not theatrical aggression. It is steady conviction expressed without hostility. It manifests in difficult conversations, initiated rather than avoided. It manifests in dissent, articulated respectfully when consensus drifts toward error. It manifests in refusal to participate in corruption, even when silence would be safer. Courage is quiet when necessary and vocal when required. It does not seek confrontation, yet it does not retreat from it. Justice demands impartiality. It requires that you evaluate situations beyond personal benefit. Favoritism seduces because it rewards loyalty and proximity. Yet justice looks beyond preference. It measures fairness against principle rather than relationship. In leadership, justice generates trust. In friendship, it generates respect. In self-assessment, it generates credibility. Temperance governs appetite. Modern culture glorifies indulgence as liberation. Excess is marketed as reward. Yet, unrestrained appetite gradually enslaves. Temperance does not reject pleasure. It contextualizes it. It ensures that desire does not eclipse duty. It ensures that impulse does not override intention. The temperate man enjoys without attachment and abstains without resentment. Virtue under pressure is particularly luminous. When provoked, maintain composure. When insulted, maintain dignity. When tempted, maintain clarity. Reaction reveals depth of cultivation. A single insult can expose unexamined insecurity. A single opportunity for gain can expose concealed greed. Circumstance acts as catalyst, accelerating whatever qualities are already present. Consistency magnifies virtue. Sporadic integrity confuses observers and weakens influence. Predictable character builds stability. When others know your word is reliable, collaboration strengthens. When others know your decisions are principled, negotiation simplifies. Reliability becomes currency more valuable than charisma. Virtue also requires humility. Arrogance disguises itself as confidence, yet it resists correction. Humility remains teachable. It acknowledges limitation without surrendering aspiration. It recognizes that growth requires feedback. Humility does not diminish authority, it refines it. Compassion integrates strength with empathy. Acting virtuously does not require cold detachment. It requires understanding that others operate from. Unseen struggles. Firmness can coexist with kindness. Discipline can coexist with patience. Correction can coexist with respect. In moments of injustice, virtue resists the urge toward vengeance. Retribution often masquerades as righteousness. Yet retaliation driven by emotion perpetuates conflict. Virtue seeks proportion and restoration, rather than escalation. It responds deliberately, not impulsively. Circumstances often test loyalty to principle by presenting trade-offs. Expediency whispers that compromise is temporary. Convenience suggests that deviation is harmless. Yet standards erode incrementally. The disciplined man guards thresholds carefully. He defines non-negotiables in advance so that decision under pressure becomes execution rather than improvisation. Virtue requires self-surveillance. Before judging others, evaluate your own conduct. Hypocrisy erodes authority rapidly. Alignment between expectation and example strengthens influence naturally. Lead through embodiment rather than proclamation. There will be seasons when virtue isolates. Refusal to conform to unethical norms may distance you from certain circles. That solitude is clarifying. It reveals who values integrity over advantage. It strengthens independence from approval. Acting with virtue does not guarantee immediate reward. Outcomes may appear unfavorable. Others may advance through manipulation. While you progress steadily, yet virtue compounds invisibly. Trust accumulates, self-respect deepens, stability solidifies. Even in private moments, unseen by audience or colleague, virtue matters. Character is defined more by solitude than by spotlight. The decision to refrain from dishonesty when no detection is possible reveals authenticity. Fatigue often precedes moral compromise. When exhausted, standards loosen. Therefore, discipline includes rest, reflection, renewal. Sustained virtue requires sustained clarity. Resilience supports virtue. Under sustained adversity, cynicism tempts surrender. You may question whether integrity is worthwhile. Yet cynicism corrodes meaning. Virtue preserves orientation. It maintains direction when morale fluctuates. Language reflects virtue. Speak without malice. Critique without cruelty. Praise without flattery. Silence can be virtuous when remember mortality and live deliberately. Life acquires clarity when viewed through the lens of its finitude. The awareness that time is limited does not diminish joy. It refines it. Moments become valuable because they are transient. Opportunities become urgent because they will not return. The modern mind often avoids contemplation of death, treating it as an abstract inevitability rather than a teacher. Yet mortality is the ultimate instructor. It strips pretension and reveals priorities. When you acknowledge that days are numbered, you begin to choose how those days are spent. Deliberation replaces drift. Purpose replaces procrastination. Existence transforms from routine into responsibility. To remember mortality is not to dwell in morbidity. It is to recognize that every breath is temporary and therefore precious. The assumption of endless time breeds complacency. Tasks are postponed. Conversations are deferred. Expressions of gratitude remain unspoken. Dreams are catalogued, but never pursued. When the illusion of infinite time dissolves, urgency emerges. You begin to act. You call the friend you have neglected. You pursue the project you have postponed. You apologize when necessary. You express affection without hesitation. These actions are not sentimental. They are deliberate. They honor the reality that moments cannot be reclaimed. Living deliberately requires choice. Much of modern existence operates on autopilot. Habits dictate behavior. Schedules dictate attention. Notifications dictate focus. Deliberate living interrupts that automation. It asks whether actions align with values. It evaluates whether energy is invested in meaningful pursuits. It rejects busyness as a substitute for progress. A calendar filled with activity does not guarantee significance. Deliberation distinguishes motion from advancement. Mortality also clarifies perspective on success and failure. Achievements matter, yet they are not ultimate. Titles fade, wealth fluctuates. Public recognition is temporary. What remains is the quality of character and the impact of conduct. A life lived deliberately prioritizes substance over spectacle. It values integrity over applause. It measures success by alignment with principle rather than comparison with others. This perspective liberates the mind from constant competition. You need not outrun everyone else. You need only become the best version of yourself. The awareness of death also cultivates gratitude. Each ordinary moment becomes extraordinary when viewed as limited. A morning sunrise is not guaranteed. A shared meal is not guaranteed. The presence of loved ones is not guaranteed. Gratitude arises from recognition of this uncertainty. It shifts attention from deficiency to abundance. Instead of focusing on what is lacking, you appreciate what exists. Gratitude does not deny struggle. It contextualizes it. Even in difficulty, there are elements of value lessons, growth, relationships, opportunities for resilience. Deliberate living acknowledges both hardship and grace. Fear often accompanies contemplation of mortality. The unknown can be unsettling. Questions arise about legacy, meaning, and what lies beyond life. These questions are natural. They reflect the depth of human consciousness. However, fear need not paralyze. It can motivate. If time is finite, then it should be spent wisely. If opportunities are limited, then they should be pursued. If relationships matter, then they should be nurtured. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Deliberate living also involves acceptance. Not everything can be controlled. Health may decline. Circumstances may change. Loss may occur. Mortality reminds you that control is partial. You can influence choices, attitudes, and efforts, but outcomes are not guaranteed. Acceptance of this reality fosters peace. It reduces frustration with forces beyond your influence. Instead of resisting the uncontrollable, you focus on what remains within reach your response. To live deliberately is to define purpose. Purpose provides direction. It answers the question of why. Why do you work? Why do you create? Why do you strive? Without purpose, effort becomes scattered. Energy dissipates. With purpose, actions coalesce into meaning. Purpose does not need to be grandiose. It can be service to family, contribution to community, mastery of craft, or pursuit of knowledge. What matters is alignment between purpose and action. Deliberation ensures that choices support rather than contradict that alignment. Mortality also encourages simplicity. Excess often distracts. Material accumulation can obscure value. The pursuit of more and more possessions, more recognition, more experiences can become endless. Deliberate living evaluates necessity. What is truly required? What enhances life? What merely occupies space? Simplicity does not reject enjoyment. It rejects clutter. It creates room for what matters. A simplified life allows focus. Focus allows depth. Depth allows fulfillment. Remembering death ultimately enhances appreciation for life. Paradoxically, awareness of an ending makes the journey richer. Each interaction becomes significant. Each opportunity becomes precious. The mundane gains meaning. A conversation becomes connection. A challenge becomes growth. A quiet moment becomes reflection. Life is no longer something to be endured, but something to be experienced. Deliberate living demands accountability. You are responsible for your choices. Blame offers temporary relief, but no lasting progress. When things go wrong, deliberation asks what can be learned. When things go well, it asks how improvement can continue. Accountability empowers agency. You are not a passive participant in existence. You are an active creator of your path. The knowledge of mortality also fosters empathy. Others are similarly finite. They experience struggle, hope, joy, and grief. Understanding this common humanity encourages compassion. It reduces judgment. It strengthens connection. Deliberate living recognizes that relationships are among life's greatest treasures. They deserve attention and care. Ultimately, remembering mortality and living deliberately transforms perspective. Time becomes valuable. Choices become intentional. Relationships become meaningful. Purpose becomes clear. Fear diminishes. Gratitude increases. Life is not infinite, but it is profound. Its brevity does not diminish its significance. It heightens it. Each day is an opportunity to create, to grow, to contribute, to love. Deliberate living embraces that opportunity. It refuses to waste time on trivialities. It prioritizes what? Endures character, relationships, purpose. When the end arrives, as it inevitably will, what remains is not the accumulation of possessions or accolades, but the legacy of actions and the memory of impact. To remember mortality is to live in such a way that those memories are worth preserving. Deliberation ensures that life is not merely experienced but lived fully with intention and meaning. The awareness of an ending gives urgency to the present. It transforms ordinary moments into opportunities. It calls you to act, to choose, to create. In that action lies the essence of a life well lived.